Paharpur 3P is a leading manufacturer of flexible packaging in India, established in 1986 at Sahibabad near New Delhi as a subsidiary of Paharpur Cooling Towers. The parent company was founded in 1948 by Sri Mahendra Swarup, headquartered in Calcutta, and is a leading manufacturer of cooling towers and dry cooling equipment in the world. Paharpur 3P employs approximately 500 employees with a turnover of over rupees 500 crore. Product line includes flexible food, liquid packaging, home and personal care, agricultural, and pharmaceutical packaging. They manufacture custom printed packaging materials in the form of rolled stock films and pouches, and specialize in the manufacture of retort packaging pouches for ready-to-eat food and ready-to-drink applications. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today on the show, logging in from Kolkata, India, Chairman Paharpur 3P, Mr. Gaurav Swarup. I'm so glad to have you with us today, sir, and a very warm welcome on the show, Insights with Nidhi Verma.
Hi viewers, how are you doing today?
They're all happy to have you with them, sir. Do take us through your journey from the beginning of 80s to now. It has been very significant. We would love to hear the main highlights, sir.
Well, I studied my engineering and then got an MBA degree from Harvard and joined the family business in the early 80s. And initially it was in manufacturing that I was involved, and I was made to run factories, and therefore I got to handle people, labor, manufacturing processes, and so on and so forth. And then in the mid 80s, we decided, or early 80s, an opportunity for entering into the woven sack industry came along. And our family decided to invest in that. And I was involved in the setting up and running of that business. And we ran that business till 1997. And during this period, I was running this business as well as being involved in the manufacturing end of our parent business, that is the cooling tower business, and other interests that we had in other companies and so on and so forth. Okay, and we exited the woven sack business in 1997, if I'm not mistaken. And then I focused more on, let us say, the flexible packaging business as well as our parent business. Also, I also got involved in KSB Pumps, where we have a substantial shareholding, and I am the chairman of the company. So along with, which is also in the engineering field. So KSB Pumps, Paharpur, and our other businesses, apart from the flexible packaging business, has kept me busy. And then over the years, we looked at various other opportunities. We also went into forestry and timber trading. And even today, we have forests in South Africa, plantations, which we are operating, and we are running businesses in South Africa as well. So over the years, we were able to build up an international flavor to our overall business, with operations in South Africa, India, Europe, US, China, and we also have offices in Korea, Turkey, Spain, and so on. So this gives us quite a world view of things. And that's what's keeping me busy today.
Extremely diversified, sir, and actually covering all the continents in the world. Paharpur is a pioneering in cooling towers and other verticals that you mentioned, basically in engineering products. What motivated the group to venture into packaging, sir?
Well, as I mentioned, our first foray into packaging was in woven sacks. That was, I think, 84 or so. And apart from that, my brother-in-law, Mr. Kamal Mittal, was involved in flexible packaging through the stand-up pouch business, which was for the oil companies and was known as Standypack. So in the initial years, of course, he was, the focus was more on Standypack, and he was running that. And then it was in the mid-90s that I got involved in the flexible packaging business, because we invested very heavily in the upstream end of it, in the sense the making of films and making of laminates and so on and so forth. So we went and bought a plant in Germany in the early 90s, which was being sold, and we shifted that entire plant from Berlin into Delhi. And that's how Paharpur 3P really started. And that's how that was where my involvement came in. And even today, we are more into pouches as opposed to just plain films, for that matter.
This flexible packaging business of Paharpur 3P is known for innovations, and you've also given us a peek how it all started. What is the reason that you put so much emphasis and focus on innovations?
Packaging, particularly flexible packaging, is all about innovation. Okay, unless you innovate and you come up with new products, new concepts, you just be left behind. Everything, it's a very tough business. Everything gets commoditized very fast. And therefore you have to be ahead of the curve and coming up with new things. And unless you innovate, you'll just die.
I agree. I do remember a phrase now, they say, don't think out of the box. They say, break the box. There's a stand-up pouch revolution in India was initiated by Paharpur 3P, starting with the 40 ml and 60 ml pouches for packaging lubricating oil. Tell us more about this journey specifically, and what are the new developments that you have introduced in the stand-up pouches? Your company is a veteran in that section.
Well, as I told you earlier, the 40 milliliter and 60 milliliter pouches for oil packaging were essentially a brainchild of my brother-in-law, Mr. Kamal Mittal. And he set up this business, and he is very much into the oil packaging, and that's really his specialty. And then in 1993, when we set up the flexible packaging plant in Saibabad under 3P, okay, his business was Standipack. Then at that stage, we didn't really remain in the oil, the oil business is something which 3P did not get involved in, but we were involved in other applications as far as pouches are concerned. And today, over the years, we are one of the largest pouch manufacturers in the country today. I would say the largest, and we are well known, as you rightly said, for our pouch capabilities. And making a pouch is not easy, particularly when you are packing liquids, because you can very easily go wrong, and in case you have product failures, then you lose your reputation very quickly. So bit by bit, slowly and steadily, we built up the expertise within our company for making pouches. And we also innovated in terms of spouted pouches, shaped pouches, and other kinds of pouches. And it's all part of the innovation. So you keep innovating, you keep coming up with new things. And today, spouted pouches, shaped pouches are really finding a place for themselves in the marketplace.
They are, they indeed are. So what was the objective of having a separate subsidiary, Floater India? What was the reason behind that?
Well, you see, Floater India is a company we purchased, and this was involved in set up by Floater of Germany, and was involved in making retort pouches. And retort pouches, whilst they look simple, they are very complicated because they pack ready-to-eat foods. Now, you will understand that when you are packing food which is eaten readily, you can't afford to have anything go wrong with that food. So the barrier properties are very essential. And you just cannot have that food getting contaminated or going bad, and it's got to remain good to eat for a long, long time once it's packed. So the demands on a, say, pouch for packing ready-to-eat food are very high, and which is why one goes in for retort pouches. Now, retort pouches require very specialized films and very specialized processes to manufacture, because there is absolutely zero room for error. And when we knew about retort pouches, but we really weren't confident, and we didn't have the know-how, and we could not experiment. So when this opportunity arose, when Floater India was up for sale, we went and bought it. Okay? And since we bought a company, it still remains a company. We have not integrated it. And it's very focused on making retort pouches, which are a very specialized kind of pouch. And given that it is a focused company, it is a focused operation, we have achieved quite a bit of success as far as retort pouches in this country are concerned. And we probably manufacture, a very, very substantial part of the retort pouches in this country.
So that caters to the niche requirement that subsidiary is for that. So Paharpur 3P has always been in the forefront of investing in technologies, whether it was for tape line and looms, or for when we were in the woven sacks, or the European multi-layer film plants in the industry. What is the reason behind these investments being huge, and does it really give the payback that you planned?
No, okay, as far as investment in equipment and technology is concerned, we believe that one should go in for technology which will not fail, okay? And which is why, despite cheaper alternatives being available, okay, we generally go for more expensive equipment. But we do not necessarily go for the latest and the most high-tech, because we believe in proven equipment. Okay, we want something which will be which will be guaranteed to perform and will give us no surprises. So we get our people set on that equipment so that we can produce quality products. We can produce those products reliably and produce a product that will perform in the marketplace. Okay? Because it's very easy to go wrong. Actually, the problem is that in flexible packaging, people think that the business is easy. Okay? But it's got so many twists and turns in that business that you can easily go wrong and put yourself into deep trouble. So, which is why we believe that we should go in for reliable equipment, made by reputed manufacturers, and which will give us trouble-free performance.
Thank you so much for sharing the principle that you follow before you make your CapEx decisions. They're really going to give some insight to our viewers and converters who are planning to, spend their CapEx, and your insight will definitely be valuable to them, sir. So the demand of packaging has grown exponentially since especially the pandemic. Are there any fast track projects that your organization is implementing to cater to any specific requirements that have come up in these 5 months?
Not really. Like I said, we are always in a constant state of innovation. So there would be certain projects being taken up to cater to, let us say, areas of demand which have arisen. But by and large, we have had to maybe increase capacity in certain selected areas where the demand would have been higher. But the long and short of it is, like I said, innovation is a constant process and we keep innovating.
Agreed, sir. So innovation is like a way of life at Paharpur 3P is what I understand. So your organization caters to material for various products. You're covering absolutely everything from food, beverages, tea, coffee, edible oil to FMCG companies in India and also across the world. PET for foods, pharma, host of other products. How do you divide your focus between the domestic as well as the export markets?
Well, you see, we are doing exports right now, okay, and maybe we do 10-15% of our turnover in exports. But I personally would like to increase it. And I do think that there are opportunities available for us to export more. And my view is that we should be exporting at least maybe 25-30% of our output in the short term, okay, and long term maybe even more. But this would involve maybe evolution of certain strategies, export strategies in terms of products, in terms of markets, and so on and so forth. So that is something which, again, we'll be focusing on and trying to improve our performance in exports.
So with your view and 360 degrees kind of vision of almost the world markets because of your other verticals also, I think the exports share of Paharpur 3P will really grow very fast because of, as I said, that you also have a lot of other businesses across the world, which gives you that little edge. So Paharpur 3P is geographically only limited to the north as far as operations is concerned. Localization in this pandemic has kind of emerged as the new mantra. Do we see your organization going nearer to the customers? Maybe you kind of, copy paste your operations, smaller capacities, but multiple locations. Are you looking at that?
Yes, we certainly are looking at that. And we have decided that we must have one more plant in the short term elsewhere in the country. And since we are in the north, that plant would either be in the west, south, or east to start with. But you're very right. We need to expand our geographical footprint, and therefore we will be going in for new plants in different regions of the country.
Thank you for sharing that. Sir, a little deviating from Paharpur 3P, because you have your cooling tower plants located in China, and probably we would like to take your view on few questions for China. What has been the experience of your operating your plants in China overall?
Excellent. We have one plant in China, which is involved in our dry cooling business, where we make air-cooled condensers. And we employ roughly about 500 people in that plant. And we recently moved into a new location, and that particular plant is amongst the best in the world in its business. And we have had no problems whatsoever in operating from China. We find the government very cooperative, and we find the workers very productive, and we find the overall environment very conducive to manufacturing. It is certainly a lesson that we have learned. Okay, and I would say that a lot of those good points should be brought into India. Okay, overall, in terms of how industry can operate in a country with very little, let's say, obstructions, and very few obstructions, and very little in terms of hassle, so to say.
That is an input for our policymakers who will also be watching this interview, sir. Most of the workers that are working in China are from China itself?
Absolutely. Everybody is from China. We do not have anybody from India in the plant over there.
Okay. So what is the main work culture difference that you observe between the China plant and the Indian plants?
Well, one is, there is no kind of diversion. Everybody focuses on their work. Okay? So the workmen work, the staff works, and we have very tight targets, and people perform. They're looking at cutting cost all the time. They go into great detail, and they communicate well. So I would say that it is an excellent work culture that prevails over there.
Thanks for sharing that, sir. We always would like to hear what really people who have their plants in China, what their feedback is, and all of it is positive as you share with us. So one segment supplied by your company is agricultural products such as seeds, pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, fertilizers. This segment normally doesn't figure amongst the other multi-layer laminate producers. What made you go into this segment?
I would say that there is a lot of competition in this segment as well, and there are other laminate manufacturers who are competing in this segment. But just as you have food, you have personal care products, you also have agricultural products. So this is only expanding the market reach and expanding our portfolio of, let's say, customers and products and markets. And therefore, wherever we see an opportunity, we would certainly pursue that. But these are, the thing is that the seed market is, again, a market which has certain demands. It is seasonal for that matter. Okay, again, it is very, say, quality conscious. We again can compete or let's say focus only on those customers who are quality conscious. Okay, if you go to each and everybody in the business, then there are requirements which I would say we cannot meet in terms of cost and so on and so forth. So we focus on customers who are looking at quality, who are looking at reliability, technology, new products, and so on and so forth. So that's the only way, again, that we would thrive in a segment like this.
So I'm really learning how focus were words that are getting implemented in strategies in organizations like yours. Are you getting requests from the FMCG companies? Are they collaborating with you as far as the innovations for recycling of the packaging films are concerned?
Oh, yes, there's a lot of work going on. And some of these large FMCG companies are working very closely with us. Okay? And they are certainly imparting a great amount of focus in terms of recycling and coming up with products that can be recycled, and you can come up with what they call a circular economy. So there's a lot of work being done there. And we are also involved in that.
Going forward, what are the growth plans? I did hear that you're looking at another plant, which we will look forward to. I've also read that Paharpur 3P is planning major investments over the next few years in new machines, technologies, and the works. Companies also look out for acquiring package manufacturing units in different parts of the country and almost zeroed down on one company. Not sure whether you'd like to share it here, but if not now, when will we hear the big news?
We have nobody so-called zeroed down at this point in time. We have looked at various acquisition opportunities. And essentially, we need to grow. So you can have growth through acquisition and growth by setting up greenfield plants. And at this point in time, I think we veered down to the conclusion that it's best that we go for a greenfield plant, because that is something which we can do exactly as per our needs. Whereas growth by acquisition depends on the right opportunity at the right time and the right place. So we really haven't come up with anything as at this point in time. We have looked at a few candidates in the past, but we really haven't been able to conclude any transaction as such.
Okay, sir. So you're an extremely multifaceted organization. You're the best person to ask, how do you see the economy going forward after the pandemic? Which industries you think are going to take off, and which are the ones which will face issues in rebounding?
Well, very simply, I would say that the one industry which will take off is the vaccine industry. Okay, as soon as a vaccine is developed, everyone will get vaccinated. So that's something okay. But on the other hand, I would say that one would look at when one looks at other industries, it's very difficult to predict. Okay, one thing certainly, one industry which has been hit very badly is the travel and tourism industry. Okay, that's kind of, it's in shambles at this point in time, and other service industries which are located, say, related to travel and so on. But and they will take some time to come back after the pandemic. But on the other hand, I look at things a little differently. I say that when we started off, when the pandemic hit us, there was a lot of gloom. Okay? The country was fighting on two fronts. One was on the health front, that there was a great fear that there'll be a great many deaths and there'll be, pandemonium and we won't be able to handle it and so on and so forth. Okay? And we would read at that time about the number of cases in Italy, in Spain, and so on and so forth, and even in the US, where they couldn't handle the, say, number of cases in their hospitals and so on. So that was one fear. And I'm happy to say today that I would say that we've been able to control it reasonably well. Okay, although we may have 70,000 odd cases per day coming up. But in terms of numbers of, let's say, death rate is very low as compared to the rest of the world. And we have a lot of recoveries. And today you do not have chaos in terms of people saying that there are no hospital beds, there's no place to keep patients, and people are being kept on the road and this, that, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I would say that on the health front and on the pandemic management front, the number of tests has gone up dramatically and it's going up every day. I would say despite whatever is happening, I would say it's being managed. Okay, we've been able to get through, and the doomsday scenario has not really had to be faced. Similarly, on the as far as the economy is concerned, we were very scared that there would be chaos and companies would shut down and there would be complete economic collapse. But looking at the GST numbers for June and July and so on and so forth, we are coming back up. Okay, and we've hit about 85, 86% or 90% of our GST collections pre-pandemic, and they are going up. So you see that the economy is also running, despite certain sectors such as travel and tourism being practically dead or very badly affected. Okay, so when you look at that, I would say that this is where we are when we are in a state of pandemic and sort of lockdowns and things like that. So when this is over, I would say that we'll come back, we'll rebound, and there are very many say predictions. People who say that by next year, middle of next year, the economy will be doing very well. Okay, you take the auto industry, for example. The auto industry has now started picking up, and for a while there were practically no vehicles being sold. Despite that, if you look at that, and despite even housing being down, the steel industry hasn't done too badly. They exported. So, we'll find ways and means of surviving. The first thing is to survive. Once you have survived, then you look ahead and say, now how do I thrive? Okay. So that's the way I see things are going to unfold going forward.
Thank you, sir, for actually seeing it from an angle which is very optimistic if we choose to look at it that way and say, yes, we first survive and then we look at thriving. Excellent lesson there, sir. So Paharpur 3P is a very fine blend of family and professionals running the company. We see a lot of family-run businesses in our industry, and yours is as seen as an extremely fine balance. How do you think you have kind of built that balance?
See, the thing is, as businesses grow larger, it is not possible for family members to do everything themselves. So, they should be capable, and therefore there is a great stress on education in our family. And the next generation has been well educated, and they've pursued, say, education in various fields. And apart from that, we have a great many professionals in the business. And see, I am a firm believer that one should surround oneself with people who are more intelligent than you. Okay, so that's how I would say that we need to have competent professionals, the best people for the job, okay, who can do a good job of running the businesses. And the family, if it really wants to get involved, great. Otherwise, it has to have a role in terms of finding a place where there can be a good mix of family intervention and as well as sort of professional intervention. And you try to get the best of both, because families provide continuity, they provide a certain stability in any organization. And the most important thing is to focus on having people who are competent, okay, as far as family is concerned, okay, and that is what we strive to do. And then again, it becomes a situation: to what extent is the family, is the next generation really interested in being in the business? Because if they are not, okay, there's no point in trying to force them into being interested, because then they'll never be able to meet the requirements. Running a business in today's world is a challenging task. Okay, yeah, because there's a lot of competition, there are a lot of threats, there are a lot of opportunities, and so on and so forth. So you need competent people, and apart from competence, you also need people who are passionate about doing certain things.
What a beautiful way to share, sir. I think this is going to be really important, and actually this specific session can actually become a very, very long session, because all the families in our plastic industry business, they will find this input that you've shared very, very valuable, because all of them struggle with this, and they kind of, need to see that how to balance between the family and the professionals. Your third generation is now in the business. Your daughters, Devina and Mahima and Siddharth and Varun, Mr. Vikram Swarup's sons. How do they choose to continue in the family business?
Well, that's up to them. Okay, I really cannot say how they will choose. Okay, you must have. All I would say is that we have to ensure that they are in a position to decide. Okay, they should not be prisoners of circumstances either. Okay, so how they choose is up to them, and that is something which will evolve.
Okay, so well taken there. So if you were to go 20 years back, what actions would you do differently? I know this is a theoretical question, but I really, you may be introspecting, you may be looking back and saying that maybe, this I would have done it this way. Or do you have some thoughts on that?
Well, when one looks back, when one looks back, retrospective vision is always 20/20, as they say. So there are several things which I would not have done. Now it's pointless trying to get into detail, because a lot of them are detailed things, okay, and whether it's business or otherwise also, okay, and maybe we should have done them differently, okay. So there are, let's say, certain regrets, there are certain failures, okay, apart from the successes. But at the end of the day, one has to have the feeling that one put in his best, okay, and we go back, put in your best, do your hard work, and leave the results to God. So that's where you are.
Well encapsulated, sir. Do share what you consider as, I may say, the pearls of wisdom with our industry colleagues. As per you, what is the best strategy to follow, as you said rightly, in this survival time and in this difficult time? If you have some thoughts you want to share with our industry colleagues.
Yes, I would always say that first and foremost, make sure that you have enough cash. Okay, your cash flows should be good. You should not unnecessarily be borrowing from the bank. Okay, you should have your own cash. Do not leave money in outstandings. Manage your working capital well, and generally, be a little conservative in these times because we don't know as to what's going to happen in the future. Okay, so one needs to be conservative. One needs to be very prudent in making, expenditures and so on and so forth. Okay. So all said and done, be humble. Okay, keep your feet on the ground, and don't stretch out unnecessarily.
Extremely practical input, sir. And finally, all of us in these last 5 months have spent some time, looking back, taking one step back and thinking a lot that, what are the real to-do things which are more prioritized and where we were wasting our time and our thoughts earlier. What are the main learnings, maybe one each from your life or the principles that you followed or imbibed, one for business and one personally, sir?
One is, as far as business is concerned, be alert, keep your eye on the ball. Okay? Do not get flamboyant, okay, in business. Do not take unnecessary risks, okay, is what I would say. Okay? But of course, where there is no risk, there is no gain. So you have to take certain risks. Okay? But like I said, there are certain risks which should be taken, and there are certain risks which are unnecessary risks. So that's, and stick to your areas of competence. Do not try to get into new things where you may not have the required expertise, and therefore you're exposing yourself to a lot of risk. And as far as personally is concerned, okay, I would say that be humble, okay, have good family values, and I would say have faith in God.
So I'm going to thank you so very much for giving us your time, sharing your vision, your thoughts on some important parameters. The takeaways during these difficult times are going to be very valuable for our industry colleagues. And it has been an honor to have your audience. I've always prayed to God that I can someday study a little bit at Harvard. I went to the Harvard Institute and I just wanted not to come back from there. And you are from such an early age, and I can see that, how the thinking has evolved. It has been a huge honor, sir. And I'm going to thank you from my side and from the entire industry colleague side. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. Indeed a pleasure to have been interviewed by you.